on regional economic initiatives such as CASA 1000 and TOPI. For Afghanistan and its neighboring countries to achieve its long-desired prosperity, stability, and sustainable economic development, regional cooperation is an essential element. Our next panel will further enlighten us on this issue. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Nazir Kabiri, Member of Afghanistan Economic Council, Ambassador Arif Ayub, President of the Institute of Regional Studies in Islamabad, Dr. Mohsen Shariati Nia, Senior Researcher, Center for Strategic Research of Excellency Council, Tehran, Iran, Mr. Alexander, Director of the National Network of the Information and Resource Centers of NGOs of Kazakhstan. This panel will be chaired by former Ambassador Inayat Nabil, advisor to Afghanistan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, merciful, the compassionate. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the fourth session, Regional Economic Cooperation in Connectivity, Obstacles and Opportunities. In the last session, we discussed how to put our effort together to fight the evil of narcotics drug. Fortunately, in this panel, we'll be discussing how to put our efforts together to promote regional economic cooperation in the interest of the people of the region and beyond. Let me first of all congratulate the Afghanistan-Central for Strategic Studies and the director of the center, Dr. Muradian, for organizing this important gathering, Afghanistan-Central Asia Dialogue 2. I wish this meeting, on its part, contribute to the further enhancement of regional economic cooperation in Central Asia and neighboring regions, and assist in improving the political and security climate in the region and beyond as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the regional economic cooperation is close to my heart. During 2009 and 2010, I was involved, or I should say, cooperation served as an engine of growth and development for Afghanistan in Central Asian countries. It's promising that after a long pause, once again this region and Afghanistan, which is an important link in the chain of Central Asian countries, is coming out of the backwater of the global politics and economic attention. And attention and interest in Central Asia and Afghanistan from outside of the region is increasing. Let me add that positive impact of regional cooperation in this region can travel way beyond the region and can encompass entire Eurasia region. In this context, let me quote Johannes Lind, the former Vice President of the World Bank and the Senior Fellow at Emerging Market Forum. He stated that there is a wide agreement that economic prosperity and political stability in Central Asia is critical not only for the 60+ million inhabitants of the region, but also for the Central Asia neighbors, since Central Asia serves as a strategically important land bridge between Europe and Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, many important initiatives have been taken in the area of regional economic cooperation in Central Asia. I would like to name only 4 of them. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the Eurasian Economic Community, the recent initiatives focused on Afghanistan, such as New Silk Road Strategy, the RICA, which I mentioned before, and a few more, such as the Istanbul process. Let me conclude my remarks here and now listening to our distinguished panelists. As the agenda, let me see. As it's reflected in the agenda, our class speaker would be Mr. Nazir Kabiri, member of Afghanistan-National Economic Council. And I would like to invite Mr. Kabiri. You have the floor, sir.
Your Excellency Ambassador, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure being here in front of you today and speaking on a subject which is, of course, very close to our heart, as His Excellency Ambassador stated. It's a pleasure being in this panel with such a distinguished member panelist. Last year around this time at this panel we had His Excellency President Ashraf Ghani with us, and that shows how great of an attention the new government is going to be paying to the regional economic cooperation. I'll be starting with a few recent developments on the subject, and then I will quickly move on to the London conference and the outcomes of the regional economic dinner, which was held on the eve of the conference on December 3rd, and of course the way forward and the discussions that came out of the London conference. Starting with the recent developments, as you might have noticed and probably closely followed the development of His Excellency President's state visit to China and Pakistan, President started with a very successful state visit to China, and bulk of the discussions became economic. I'm sure there's simultaneous translation being provided. I'm speaking in English, apparently. I also do have some handouts if colleagues can possibly help to distribute them. They are here on the table. Sure, somebody can possibly help distribute the handouts. I've got copies of the recent Afghanistan vision paper presented at the London conference, and of course a few bullet points on the regional economic agenda. If you could possibly share those around. In China, of course, as I mentioned, bulk of the discussions became economic, provided President's history and work background in China, and the new commitments which we secured through the discussions in China. The administration has significantly advanced the regional agendas and access to trade and markets in our discussions with the Chinese authorities. China will be providing support to the national infrastructure development of Afghanistan. And plans or discussions are underway that there's going to be some state investments in the sector. And related to that, of course, we also had a successful Heart of Asia Istanbul Process Conference held in Beijing on October 30th. We think that Heart of Asia is the right platform to discuss regional cooperation as a whole, be it political, security, or cultural, and of course economic. At the Heart of Asia, member countries, most of them our neighbors, they showed their willingness for doing more regional economics. So in London, we thought we can possibly focus on specific projects related to economic cooperation. So connecting the conference's recent events held on Afghanistan, we think that the Heart of Asia set the floor for doing more more cooperation in the region. And then the next step, of course, was the state visit President had to Pakistan, and then of course the London conference, which came with the specific results on some specific economic projects. Similarly, in Pakistan, the state visit, of course, proceeded in specific concrete commitments to removing impediments to trade and transit between the two countries, including agreements to co-present regional projects that would promote trade as well as reinforce regional stability. One of them being the discussions on provisions of implementation on the provisions of AFTA. The commitment secured in Pakistan is now going to be materialized. The next APTICA meeting is going to be held in mid-December. Moving to the London conference, in which we presented our new vision for Afghanistan's economic development. In London, the government presented its vision for reform and development. It's of course based on the Tokyo's mutual accountability framework, but specific and more prominent attention is given to the agenda of regional economic cooperation. This, of course, communicates a few key messages. We believe that regional countries are key to us in more important ways. And, of course, Afghanistan as a hub between Central Asia and South Asia, of course, can materialize and build upon its competitive advantage, connecting the resource-rich Central Asia to South Asia. Specifically naming some projects like CASA and TAPI, TUTA, and the rest can be good examples of this. In London, provided the importance of this agenda, which is of course stated in our vision paper, we tried to hold a discussion between 20 member countries, part of the Heart of Asia, as well as also members to the CAREC program. CAREC stands for ADB Facilitated Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation as one of the mechanisms. So members of both initiatives, CAREC as well as Heart of Asia, came together on the eve of the conference, represented by their foreign ministers, His Excellency Sartaj Aziz from Pakistan and rest of the foreign ministers from the region, His Excellency Foreign Secretary of the UK, His Excellency President Ghani and Dr. Abdullah were also present at the meeting. As I stated earlier, in London, connecting the events on Afghanistan, we tried to remain very focused on regional economic projects. We obviously had a very good discussion on the CASA. The recent developments on CASA is very promising. CASA is certainly a game changer in the region. We believe that by implementing CASA, we will be showing the benefits of regional connectivity to our neighbors in the north, as well as our neighbor Pakistan. CASA will set an example for the rest of the projects to start and take off. By showing the benefits of economic cooperation, we can certainly change the dynamics of the power in the region. Our countries in the region will come for more. And of course, we see direct links between economic projects and peace and security. And similarly, there is another initiative called TUTA, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, energy project, similar to CASA. It's more of an open access line, sort of an energy network. That, of course, requires finalization of Afghanistan-Turkmenistan power purchase agreement. The President is committed, Afghanistan committed in London to possibly look after this. More specific on TAPI, of course, TAPI has been on the agenda for the last 2 decades. The next step for Turkmenistan now is to negotiate with an international oil company. That certainly is a major next step to be followed up. That discussion was brought up in London, and Turkmenistan, of course, is looking into this. And of course, we welcome the recent developments of creation of the TAPI pipeline company, which all 4 member countries are having equal share interest. Moving to the transport and infrastructure projects, we of course believe that infrastructure building for regional connectivity is really important. Afghanistan is committed to prepare a comprehensive national infrastructure development plan to build domestic and regional connectivity. And we ask countries of the region to do similar initiatives, build their domestic infrastructure with a view to possibly link it up with the regional infrastructure. We are committed to be doing our own national infrastructure plan within 1 year, and we appreciate the support from our Chinese colleagues. I'll be really quick on CAREC, of course, a familiar mechanism for the region with a 22 $2 billion investment already in the region, covering trade, transport, connectivity, as well as power. Is one of the main mechanisms to be discussing the regional agendas further. The recent CAREC ministerial held in Bishkek, of course, enlightened us on all the initiatives which EDB is facilitating. In Afghanistan, over 200 kilometers of new railway links and 300 kilometers of roads under CAREC Corridor 4, 5, and 6 yet to be implemented. Speaking of trade and transit, this is something big in this Afghan agenda presented in London and endorsed by the international community is, of course, implementation of the recent agreement signed in Pakistan between the Afghan president and His Excellency Nawaz Sharif in Pakistan. So that, of course, touches upon a few issues related to APTA provisions. And we are also considering extension of APTA to Tajikistan. Another development with regards to this, and of course there's going to be an Africa meeting hopefully soon. In London, one of the other prominent discussions was, of course, thanks to our Iranian colleagues as well as our Indian colleagues, Chabahar was brought up officially during the discussions, and both countries, three countries, of course, Afghanistan, Iran, and India, is now committed to expedite the negotiation process of the draft agreement, which is under the discussion. Lapis Lazuli, the corridor which is officially supported and is being taken forward by Afghanistan through the Afghan Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is another commitment. Countries of the region are committed to support the realization of this project. This is, of course, open to Pakistan, provided Pakistan can join through the expressways connecting Afghanistan, connecting Peshawar to Jalalabad through expressway, and Channel and Skim Bolak as well. So more than welcome to be participating in Lapis Lazuli as well. And of course, on the very last point in London, what we agreed was business visa facilitation. I guess this was brought up this morning in the first panel. Central and South Asia countries take steps. This is the commitment in London. Central and South Asian countries take steps to facilitate business travel, including liberalized visa issuance. Afghanistan is already taking steps. The recent law is the recent law provides for some European and American businessmen to possibly apply a visa on arrival for 1 year, and this is under consideration. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is on it. So with these notes, there are a lot of hopes, and there are things already taking off. CASA is, of course, setting an example for the rest of the projects to start. Regional economic connectivity is at the heart of our long-term development vision. We believe economic connectivity, provided Afghanistan's geo-economic location, will be an alternative to aid and assistance provided currently by the international community. So our call upon the international community is, as we have reflected in the London paper, is to change the dynamics of aid. We now require aid to support access to trade, to support regional connectivity, and support trade facilitation. With this, I thank you, Mr. Ambassador, and I will be happy to possibly answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kabiri, for excellent and comprehensive presentation and sharing a lot of valuable information with us on the London conference and the new initiative that has been taken on the promotion of regional cooperation. The latest is the railway, which will start from Kashgar, China, and will continue to Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, and go to Turkmenistan. This is another example of the regional cooperation and connectivity. Of course, this morning, a colleague from Iran mentioned about ECO and that how we could contribute to ECO. There is also the SARC from the South Asia Regional Economic Cooperation, that he has a lot of initiatives regarding regional cooperation, that some of them has been implemented and some some hopefully will be implemented in the future. Thanks again. How about taking to the question and answer at the end of all the presentation, if everybody agrees. And now let me invite Ambassador Arif Ayub from Pakistan. Ambassador Ayub is currently President of the Institute of Regional Studies in Islamabad. He has served as Ambassador of Pakistan to the Netherlands, Egypt, Afghanistan, and Italy. Previously, he also served in the SARC Secretariat in Kathmandu, the Pakistan mission to the United Nations, Italy, in Roma, and he's a graduate of the London School of Economics. Ambassador, you have the floor, sir.
Dear Tashakkur, dear Kushada, and Kizamaro, Nayatullah Sir, Asar Nasde, or Dr. Muradian, and dear Munanachi, Tuna M. Mozuban in our faculty. Distinguished delegates, it is an honor for me to be present here to discuss regional economic cooperation and connectivity. My brother Nazir Kabiri has outlined the opportunities, so I'll skip that in my speech, no point replicating, and stick to concentrate on the obstacles. The opportunities we all know, Toynbee described it best as the region comprising Pakistan and Afghanistan as the roundabout of trade routes and the crossroads of civilizations. And of course that is our dream as well, that from the present problems we end up somewhere like the EU, with leaving our enmities behind and having free travel without the borders. And in this, the former Prime Minister of India made an interesting observation at one of the SARC summits that he wishes for a time in which he would have breakfast in Delhi and lunch in Lahore and dinner in Kabul. So theoretically, technically, it's feasible even now. But if you visit the borders at Wagah and Chaman and Torkham, it's like going back to the Stone Age. Wagah, you have trucks lined up for 2 to 4 kilometers on both sides of the border. And you have porters putting the stuff on their heads and crossing the border for 200 yards or so. And Chaman and Wagah, the lines are even longer than 4 kilometers. I'm surprised anything gets done, and at the end of the year when we're calculating it's about $2 billion trade, but it's despite all these obstacles. So we need to move out of the Stone Ages and go to something useful. Because in SARC there's complete stagnation. I was there as director for 3 years and nothing worked. And even now, well, we improved since those days. In those days, we were 1% of regional trade was within the SARC region. Now we've increased that to 5%. But it's still meaningless. We have ASEAN at 20%, Mercosur at 50%, and East Asia at around 20%. So basically we have a serious problem and serious challenges which, if we do not overcome, the present trends will continue, in which social indicators in the South Asian region are amongst the lowest in the world. So we need to operationalize these ideas of cooperation and transform SARC into an organization worthy of its shared history, heritage, and culture in our region. And so far that is not happening. The recent SARC summit in Kathmandu, the only thing to show for it was a handshake between India and Pakistan. That's quite a shameful state of affairs. And this is after 30 years of its formation. So on ECO I've never worked, but my colleagues who are in ECO say the situation is even worse over there. I don't know how it can be worse than a mere handshake, but that's what my colleagues tell me. And in a way they're right, because ECO actually initially started as Baghdad Bank in '54, so that's 60 years we have. From there it turned into Centro, and then it turned into RCD, and now it's ECO. But regardless of the change in name, it hasn't worked at all. So the only thing which has worked in our region, at least for Pakistan, is the link with China. The Chinese government built the Karakoram highway for us in 1979, and now they are broadening it to 30 meters and linking it from Punjab to Gwadar. But there's some inherent problems in the Karakoram highway. Firstly, for 6 months in a year, it's snowed out, so because the pass is at 5,000 meters. So from November to May, you can't use it. And then the height of 5,000 meters, the diesel trucks can't function. So you have to unload 30% of the stuff from the trucks, which obviously increases the price. So our Chinese friends have calculated that from Shanghai to Karachi is 7 times cheaper than from Urumqi to Karachi. So it's obviously not a very feasible road right now. We need to work on that as well. And then there's some inherent problems in Pakistan. The World Bank in its latest Logistics Performance Index for 2014 has graded Pakistan as 72 out of 166 countries, compared to China at 28. So obviously there are serious problems there. And it's not merely a system of improvements of the logistic infrastructure. The multiplicity of agencies at the border, agreements under which trade is taking place needs to be refocused towards trade rather than creating hurdles and barriers. I have to discuss this with my Afghan brothers, but when I joined the Foreign Service, the first task I was given was to look after the Afghan Transit Trade Agreement. And it was quite a headache. Every day there was some problem or other with the railways, with the customs, or immigration. And when I looked at this new agreement after retirement, AFTA, it makes absolutely no sense at all. To a layman like me, it's just impossible to understand what they've written over there. At least the ATTA, you could understand what's happening. Here, the complexity is so intense that I'm surprised that the trade is occurring despite that. And of course, there's a question of tariffs, non-tariff barriers, service liberalization, trade facilitation by a single window, and improved regulatory regimes and transparent border clearance procedures. And the basic issue of why ECO and SARC are not working is that all the countries involved are still involved in processing the autarkic methods of economic development. And unless they take a strategic decision to link up with the globalization process in the world, these problems are going to continue. So way out I see is with linkages with China, because if present trends continue, China is going to be the #1 economy in the world in the next 5 years. Coming back to its traditional civilizational role as the world's largest economy. And all the countries in the region have good relations with China. So if we can all bilaterally link up with China, the other problems would take care of themselves. And it's not a question of just the land routes. Even in the sea route, the China Overseas Port Holding Company has bought the lease for Gwadar. and hopefully this will improve the functionality and connectivity of border as a transit and transshipment hub. Right now, at present, there's no electricity, there's no water, there's no gas, no road linkage, no rail linkage. So it's starting from zero, but with Chinese help, hopefully, we would be able to manage. And another alternative is that the Chinese are trying to bring in India and Pakistan and Iran and Afghanistan into the SCO. So if ECO and SARC are not working, hopefully with Chinese help, we can try something out in SARC where we are all there. And of course have good relations with China. So in the end, I would like to quote Prime Minister Li Keqiang of China, who in April 2014 noted that the Asian countries should take advantage of our geographical proximity to deepen cooperation across the upstream, midstream and downstream industrial chains and build an international network and economic system that draws on our respective cooperative strengths. Thank you.
لسفي سيدنا لدير علمي presentation of the next Mr. Ambassador mentioned about the challenges that the regional economic cooperation is facing today. The globalization and the enormous volume of immigration is another problem which is also becoming a challenge to the regional cooperation because it's strengthening the border security. Because globalization and the increase in immigration is also bringing threats with it. The threats of terrorism, the threats of narcotics, the threats of weapon smuggling, human person trafficking, and so many others. So, but from many studies that has been done lately, and from my personal experience attending so many regional economic cooperation conferences, I see, at least in our region, the main problem is the lack of political will, unfortunately. It's the political problem which is the biggest obstacle in helping, which is not allowing the regional organizations to really be able to achieve their objectives. It is very visible in the SARC. We also see that ECO is not working much better than the SARC. Maybe our region should learn from the experience of the European Union. Those countries in the Europe, they fought two very, very fatal wars with each other. But today they are getting along with each other, they are helping each other, and their cooperation has helped them to succeed in development. I think this much comment would be enough because I've been warning that there's a time limit. Dear President, your President Sabise, now I would like to invite the third speaker. Olas Janabe Dr. Mohsene Shariat Nia, who is the Senior Research Center for the Strategic Studies of Expediency Council in Tehran. As Janab Shah, we can give the floor again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chief. Hello, Khudaband. تشکر کنم از جناب دکتر معین برایشون که فرصت رو فراهم کنم. من بحثم رو در دو قسمت قرار بدم خدمتتون. یکی موانع همکاری در منطقه ما به نظر من چی هست و دو اینکه الیت ایران چی فکر میکنه راجع به منطقه و همکاری‌های منطقه‌ای، و سه اینکه ایران چه فرصت‌هایی برای آینده منطقه داشته باشه. از صبح که بحث‌ها شروع شد، دو تا مفهوم یا دو تا جمله هی تو ذهن من بود. یکی بحثی که آقای دکتر رادیان گفتن در واقع کانسپت خالی رو مطرح کردن، و دو اون شعر زیبای حافظ که میگه که عشق آسان بموند اول ولی افتاد مشکل. ما خیلی دوست داریم که با هم کار کنیم ولی خیلی از هم دوریم و خیلی در ابتدایی ترین مراحل همکاری منطقه‌ای هستیم. یعنی منطقه ما از لحاظ همکاری و همگرایی عقب مونده ترین منطقه شاید بشه گفت که در جهان هست، حالا اگر آفریقا رو کنار بذاریم. چرا علیرغم اینکه اینقدر ما دوست داریم این اتفاق بیفته، اینقدر صعب هست، اینقدر دشوار هست؟ دوستان اکو رو مثال زدن. اکو اولین سازمان همگرایی منطقه‌ای در کل آسیا هست، در حالی که امروز اساساً اکو با آسیان قابل مقایسه نیست. اولین مشکل به نظر من این هست که ذهنیت ما با ذهنیت همکاری جویانه خیلی تناسب نداره. در منطقه ما تمام بحثایی که صورت میگیره این هست که چه کشوری هاب بشه، چه کشوری بتونه نقش مسلط رو ایفا کنه، چه در ژئوپلیتیک چه در ژئوپلیتیک. این تفکر با همکاری سازگار نیست. وقتی که تمام کشورها تلاش میکنن که قدرت مسلط باشن و در واقع در اون جمع رئیس باشن، این با همکاری در نمیاد. بنابراین این اولین موضوعه که ما هنوز در منتالیتی خودمون، در تفکر خودمون این رو حل نکردیم که همکاری یعنی این که من 50% شما 50%، من 30%، شما 60%. همکاری این نیست که من 100% شما هیچی و شما بعد از من تبعیت کنید. این ذهنیت هنوز در استیت در این منطقه قوی هست و یک تناقضی وجود داره و دولت‌ها احساس می‌کنن که اگر همکاری کردن این سلطه یک کشور دیگه خواهند. این اولین موضوع. دو اینکه ما هنوز به این باور به نظرم نرسیدیم که زندگی ما به هم ارتباط داره، به هم وابسته است و تفکر جمعی که در منطقه ما چه در بین الیت چه در سطح عمومی به نظرم وجود داره اینه که میشه از فقیرسازی دیگران، میشه از بدبخت کردن دیگران به یه واقع نتایجی رسید. میخوام یه مثال رو خدمتتون عرض کنم. بحث اتحادیه اروپا از صبح تا الان خیلی تکرار شده. میانمار، یونان و سوریه تقریباً در یک دوره زمانی دچار مشکل حاد شدن. بنیان‌های استیت داشت از بین میره. اما منطقه سه تا واکنش خیلی متفاوت به این سه تا پدیده نشون داد. در میانمار از زمانی که میانمار دچار مشکل شد و در واقع غرب سعی کرد میانمار رو ایزوله بکنه، آسان سعی کرد که میانمار رو انگیج کنه. سعی کرد با میانمار همکاری بکنه. سعی کرد میانمار رو به عنوان بخشی از پیکره آسیایی همچنان نگه داره و سرانجام این تلاش‌ها نتیجه داد. در یونان تمام اتحادیه اروپا احساس کردند که شکست یونان شکست اتحادیه اروپا خواهد و از آلمان تا دیگران هزینه پرداخت کردند تا یونان برگرده به درون اتحادیه. اما در سوریه چه اتفاقی افتاد؟ یه اتفاق تراژیک افتاد. این خیلی مهمه که ما این ستا رو در نظر بگیریم چرا این بحران‌هایی که هم سنخ بودن در سه تا کشور در سه تا نقطه جغرافیایی سرانجام‌های خیلی متفاوتی پیدا کرد. این یعنی اینکه در منطقه ما هنوز به تفکر جمعی نرسیدیم که باید الزام داره که برای بودن با همدیگر هزینه بدیم و بودن با همدیگر رو یک الزام بدونیم که اگر زندگی در یک کشور به هم ریخت، زندگی در کشورهای دیگر هم به هم خواهد ریخت. که همین رو ما داریم می‌بینیم الان روند تحول بحران سوریه را اگر شما نگاه بکنید در اون نقطه متوقف نشده، داره مثل یه سرطان در واقع گسترش پیدا می‌کنه. بنابراین اصل بحث اینه که ما به نقطه‌ای برسیم که از بحث‌هایی که مد روز هست فاصله بگیریم و واقعا به یک حدی که می‌ذاریم باور داشته باشیم. باور جمعی در منطقه ما در مورد همکاری ضعیفه به نظر من. گرچه سخنش از چند دهه پیش گفته شده، ما سازمان ایجاد کردیم، ولی این سازمان‌ها در عمل چون همراه با منتالیتی یا ذهنیت همکاری نبوده به نتیجه نرسید. بنابراین اولین و مهمترین بحث در همکاری اینه که کشوری یا یک مجموعه‌ای نباید فکر بکنه که میتونه با حاک شدن دیگران رو تحت سلطه خودش در بیاره و همکاری رو. این همکاری امکان پذیر نیست. دو، با ایزوله کردن یک کشور نمیشه همکاری رو جلو برد. اینکه ما فکر کنیم یک کشور رو از منطقه میتونیم بیرون بکشیم و کار همکاری رو جلو بریم، این امکان پذیر نیست. دومین بحث هم در ایران امروز چگونه به همکاری منطقه‌ای نگریسته میشه. البته من دیدگاه خودم رو دارم عرض می‌کنم، دیدگاه هیچ نهاد یا در واقع گروه خاصی نیست. در ایران من استنباطم این هست روند تفکر در مورد قدرت ملی ایران و در مورد همکاری با سایرین عمیقاً متحول شد. نماد این تحول انتخاباتی بود که در 24 خرداد 92 اتفاق افتاد. الیت ایران و جامعه ایران به جنبندی جدیدی راجع به قدرت ملی ایران و رابطه‌اش با جهان بیرون رسید. این جنبندی در یک کانسپت کلیدی در واقع میشه اون رو جمع کرد. اون هم کانسپت سیاست خارجی توسعه‌گرا است. جامعه ایران و الیت ایران به این جنبندی رسیده، به این جنبندی استراتژیک رسیدن که قدرت ملی بر پایه اقتصاد میتونه شکل بگیره و اقتصاد پیشرفته بنیان قدرت ملی است و برای اینکه ما بتونیم قدرتمون رو افزایش بدیم باید همکاری کنیم و همکاری از مجرای تعدیل مواضع شکل میگیره، نه از مجرای هژمونی طلبی. بنابراین چارچوبی که بر ذهنیت الیت جدید ایران حاکم هست و بر ذهنیت بخش اعظم جامعه ایران حاکم هست این هست که ما باید همکاری بکنیم و این بحث بسیار جدی است. بحث تاکتیکی نیست، بحث شعاری نیست. به همین دلیل بحران غیر ضروری هستی به قول وزیر خارجه ایران من خوشبینم که حل خواهد شد به دلیل اینکه انتخاب استراتژیک ایران این است که کار بکنه با جامعه در سطوح منطقه‌ای و جهانی. بعد از اینکه در واقع این بحران حل و فصل شد من فکر می‌کنم ایران از چند مسیر برای توسعه منطقه میتونه برای توسعه همکاری‌ها بخشی از راه حل محسوب بشه، گرچه ایران همیشه بخشی از راه حل. اولین حوزه ترانزیت هست که دوستمون بحث چابهار رو مطرح کردن. دولت جدید ایران از اراده جدی داره که چابهار رو
для наших афганских партнеров ряд предложений, ряд мнений, ряд взглядов на эту позицию. И если эти взгляды в чем-то будут ассоциировать с их представлениями, то было бы достаточно желанно. Ну, во-первых, вы могли бы оказать реальную поддержку в организации проведения так называемых гражданских форумов. Мы считаем, что гражданский форум это может являться общенациональной диалоговой площадкой, где представители различных социальных групп и элиты правящие, и бизнес-структуры, государственных институтов власти могли бы составить конструктивный разговор о путях, механизмах решения тех проблем, которые одинаково беспокоят всех представителей общества. Во-вторых, нам было бы не безинтересно рассмотреть вопрос развития так называемых общественных советов. То есть для Казахстана, я думаю, и для партнеров в Афганистане было бы не безинтересно, если бы гражданское общество усилило влияние или контроль, в конце концов, если хотите, за принятием, за разработкой, реализацией различных программ на общенациональном уровне, на местном уровне, и реализация этих программ под влиянием общественных советов при их определенной коррекции усилила бы их эффективность и возможность повысить значимость и в конце концов могла бы усилить сопричастность граждан страны к тем процессам, которые в стране наверняка протекают. Было бы не безинтересно также предложить механизм так называемых общественных слушаний. Это достаточно интересная форма, когда государственные институты имеют возможность и даже иногда такую необходимость отчитаться, подкорректировать свои действия, свою политику в отношении различных программ, государственных программ, и общество могло бы по данным программам дать свою оценку. И, безусловно, для нас было бы интересно, если бы мы в области информационных технологий тоже усилили взаимодействие, потому что для гражданского общества его транспарентность, его возможность себя позиционировать и внутри, и за рубежом, думаю, для Афганистана было бы тоже достаточно интересным проектом. И с нашей стороны, со стороны Казахстана, мы бы могли такую методическую, организационную поддержку, безусловно, оказать при взаимном и обоюдном желании. Ну и, конечно, уважаемые коллеги, хотелось бы подчеркнуть, что решение конференции, содержание нашей конференции во многом будет реализовано только в том случае, если будет не только наши, так сказать, намерения, наши достаточно благопристойные взгляды на эти процессы, но будет политическая воля со стороны руководства, будет искреннее желание к сотрудничеству, взаимодействию, и если наши партнерские взаимоотношения будут иметь не просто несколько формальный характер, а получат ту меру заинтересованности и конструктивизма, о которой мы сегодня все говорим. Поэтому я тоже желаю всем участникам конференции вынести из сегодняшнего форума те идеи, те пожелания, те возможные пути для соприкосновения, которые мы сегодня выслушали, и я надеюсь, в дальнейшем будем в нашей работе разделять совместно.
آقای برادینکوف به خاطر پرزنتیشن بسیار عالی و همه جانبهشان تشکر میکنیم. آقای برادینکوف چند مطلب در پرزنتیشنشان تذکر زدن. اول اهمیت صلح و ثبات در افغانستان برای کشورهای همسایه و منطقه برجسته ساختن. دوم از تجربه کشورهای آسیای میانه در تدوین قوانین دموکراتیک صحبت کردند و سیوم نقش جامعه مدنی را در کشورهای شرق میانه توضیح کردند و مهمتر از اینکه آمادگی کشور خود و جامعه مدنی خود در این که بتوانند تجارب خود با کشور افغانستان و خصوص با جامعه مدنی افغانستان شریک بسازند. آمادگی همکاری خود اعلام کردند که این قابل تشکر است و امیدوار هستیم که همکاران و دوستای ما در جامعه مدنی افغانستان با استفاده از امکاناتی که در کشورهای آسیای میانه و از تجارب اونا استفاده بکنند. در اینجا ما پنالیستای ما پرزنتیشنشان خلاص میشه. از دوستا اگر سوال داشته باشن لطف کنند سوالات خود دوستا حاضر بر Yusuf, please.
Thank you all very much for the presentations. My question is for anyone, but I guess particularly for Mr. Kabir Nazir regarding the recent establishment by the Asian Infrastructure Development Bank by China and a number of other countries. Afghanistan, I don't believe, is a participant yet, and so I was wondering if that is a possibility. And secondly, because so much of the discussion today has been about infrastructure projects and funding, is that a resource that you and your colleagues are looking at utilizing? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. That's a very valid question. I believe we are yet to be starting our negotiation with the Asian Infrastructure Bank based in China. There were some preliminary discussions in China between the Afghan delegations and Chinese authorities. We of course are encouraging further investments by Chinese as they're already working with us on developing this national infrastructure program. And of course, this is something which we will be buying into. And related to that, I guess there was also a reference to the Chinese investment in the region, particularly the neutral role of China between us, Afghanistan and Pakistan, as referred to by my colleague from Pakistan. There's a possibility that Chinese can possibly invest in the Kunar River, a joint project between Afghanistan, Kunar hydropower project between Afghanistan and Pakistan. With regards to the resources, of course, we are looking into the development institutions, IFIs, in particular the World Bank, of course, is already contributing. Asian Development Bank is quite generous with that. There was also a joint call by Afghanistan and Pakistan and London to possibly look into some other sort of regional infrastructure funds that can be possibly considered for further discussions amongst the countries of the region. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
May I make a small comment? This is two parts. So first part of this comment, it's sometimes we do a lot of research on China's policy, economic policy in Central Asia, and sometimes it looks like that the absence of political will, as you mentioned it many times, absence of political will as the main problem, main barrier. China sooner or later will integrate us, economically, maybe even politically. But it's just, it's a joke, but it's not a joke in reality. So it's, you know, my comment is just on your notion. We also we often use this notion, lack of political will. But why we do not analyze, why we do not dig deeper, do not try to understand the factors which create this lack of political will? To my mind, it's not only political problem, it's research problem. So,
is this a question or this is a comment?
This is the comment, but if you could consider this as the question too, because to my mind the answer is clear, and I don't need to get the answer. But most important, we all have to think that the answer why we don't have cooperation, the answer because we have lack of political will, it's not the answer. It's not the appropriate answer we need. We have to work harder and push our governments work harder. For an example, the Center for Preventive Diplomacy last month organized very good seminar in Almaty. And before organizing the seminar, the center asked 5 countries, institutes from 5 Central Asian countries, to prepare research. How do they see, how they do consider the problems as well as prospects in the area of regional cooperation. So I think this is the best way to discuss these issues professionally. First of all, organize the research, and then on the basis of this research, organize the conference, discussions, and this will lead to deeper understanding of the problems which do exist, of the barriers that do exist, and not just understanding of the problems, but understanding of ways how we are able to solve these problems.
Thank you very much. Before my colleagues will answer to your comments and somehow question, at least for some regions, for example, for SARC, there have been research, the political, why there are obstacles. The obstacle is known, the political obstacle is known within the SARC region. There are certain political issues between India and Pakistan that everybody knows about it. It has been on the table for, God knows, for several years. So it is not that people do not know what are the political reasons. This lack of political will has a political reason. And on the other hand, as our colleague from Iran mentioned, it is the rivalry who should be the leader of the group. It is very obvious in the ECO organization. I participated in so many. I see there are one or two very powerful countries that each one want to be the leader of. Therefore, what he actually suggested is a very good solution, that we have to come over our hegemony, and we have to agree to a win-win situation, to a 50-50 or whatever, 50, 40, 60. And his suggestion was that we have not reached the point yet to accept what is fair. Unfortunately, the problem is the problem of fairness. This is not a fair world. And this unfairness in the whole relation of within the countries in the world, and especially in the international relation. This is why we have all these problems, because if people were fair, there will be no wars. If everybody would accept it and respected the other people's right, people would live in harmony. There will be coexistence. It is lack of justice, lack of fairness, and also ambition. And probably it comes because of lack of knowledge, that we cannot make peace within ourselves. This is one thing that I say. Maybe my colleagues would like to add to this.
Thank you. If I can also be fair to you, and probably you might also have things to add to this lack of political will, which is of course raised by very validly by my colleague from Pakistan, of course. There are a few messages. Of course, the recent developments on SARC is not that full of promising. Equally, I believe it's being criticized. But on the good news, there are a few independent projects that still are taking off. As I referred to earlier, CASA is happening. It has been on the agenda for the last 1 decade between the 4 countries, but for the very first time, we are making an example for the rest of the projects to start. Seeing the benefits of that, I guess we will be doing more of this in the region. Related to that, I believe the thinking of region is, to my understanding, already great, based on our direct contacts with our Pakistani colleagues. I carefully word this. The civilian government, of course, the authorities, our bilaterals, the recent visit, state visit to Pakistan, the enthusiasm, the willingness from the Pakistani side to be doing more economics with Afghanistan is very visible. The follow-up of the recent agreements is already started by Pakistan taking the first steps. But speaking of the lack of the political will, I guess one has to see the recent changes in the region. India is, of course, not going to wait for us. The globalization and the rest of the civilization is not going to wait for Afghanistan and Pakistan or the rest of the region to be possibly changing the way they are attracted. China is, of course, not waiting for us. And the rest of the region is, of course, also not waiting for us. India already is going beyond the region. India is investing in Georgia. India is even investing in South Africa. Let alone the other side of the SARC, the relationship with Nepal, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and the rest of the countries, and the amount of trade going on between that part of the region is improving. The recent forum, I guess, held by World Bank and EDB in Dubai, discussing energy, shows how progressively those projects are being considered. Pakistan, I believe, in between already is seeing, quite carefully observing the situation. Our approach, the new government's approach to Pakistan, has been already constructive. We have been already showing some green lights. The first being the agreement, the transit agreement, which we have signed on CASA on the very first week of the new administration. That was a big concession. And that was a green light. And the second being, of course, the political one being, CASA being the economics, the political one, of course, was the heart of Asia. We have now handed over the next chairmanship of the Heart of Asia process to be hosted by Pakistan. We're going to engage you and we're going to hold you accountable. That's our approach, and it's a constructive one. It's going to be different in the blame games which went between us in the last 1 decade or 14 years. It's going to be based on mutual interest and mutual economic trade between two countries. But we also are seeing the positive sentiments coming from the Pakistani side in particular. But again, of course, the rest of Central Asia and the rest of the region already are seeing the benefits of it, and of course are not going to be waiting for us to be resolving our differences. So, speaking of the degree of readiness, I guess it's already very promising, with a lot of negative media attention going from our part of the world to ISS and the rest of the movements creating news in the other parts of the world. Hopefully, will letting us to negotiate some of our differences a little far away from the international media's attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kadiri. Mr. Ambassador, you want to add anything?
I would just like to reiterate and confirm what my colleague Kabiri has said, that in Pakistan we lay great importance on President Ashraf Ghani's recent visit and his change of policy towards Pakistan. And we hope to reciprocate it, and with the new president here and our new Prime Minister, who by the way is a businessman. So the intentions are there, and let's hope that we can carry this forward. And I'd just like to add on what our US colleague just asked about China. We haven't approached them on the infrastructure bank or BRICS, but bilaterally we've given them a wish list of $40 billion for the Part-China economic corridor from Gujarat to Gwadar and all the projects on route. Of course, we're still looking at the pre-feasibility, so it's quite a long process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Do you want? Ladies and gentlemen, it's late hour. I think we have to close our session. Thank you very much for your attention. I just would like to add one thing, that if the regional organization, for whatever reason, is not working, nothing is stop us to act on bilaterally the way that it started. Of course, there are great opportunities to work as two neighbors, two countries in the region, and the interest of our people. Probably establishing bilateral cooperation would have a positive impact within the organization, and it will change the atmosphere and the climate within the regional organization as well. Thank you for the attention of everybody, and have a very good evening. And I believe there is a reception tonight. Enjoy the rest of the night and the reception. I just forgot to thank you, all the panelists, for their nice presentation. I'm sorry, now I'm going to thank you all.
Thank you, panelists.